Welcome to Tecman Talks Dynamics podcast. I'm joined today by Matt and James, and my name's Liam. Just to set some context, we've just gone into April, which means Business Central has started shipping the Wave 1 release for BC 2022.
And
23, sorry, yes, I'm a year behind. BC 23.
I know these releases are coming fast, but we are in 23.
Yeah. So they've just started shipping out, and what we were talking about in terms of our subject matter today was if we could have a wish list or a dream list. I think you called it a Dreamcast, which was an old Sega console which you made. I thought it was but yeah, so we thought we'd have a conversation. What would we like them to do next, or what do we think they would do next? So
what should they do next?
What should they do? Well, that's very what Microsoft should do compared to what they will do is.
You kind of think that once they finish one release, they'll be planning for the next one or the next one after next. Or
I hope so.
Yes,
but So we thought we'd come up. We've broken it down into a couple of different areas. So we've talked about the functionality. We said we have a little chat about licensing and just really see where the conversation goes. So as the two people that are heavily involved with the projects that we do, the functionality there. What type of things would you like to see in the future releases of Business Central?
Well, I think functionality, I mean, they've actually, this release we've just had probably more functional change in it. I guess we're a little bit biased being in the kind of warehouse and distribution space a lot, but they certainly did more in that and more of the same. To improve what's there, I'm not a fan of them building lots more starting massive new functional areas. I think there's a lot of scope for them to actually improve what's already there and fill some of the missing gaps, rather than impinge on the ISV space. Because that's the danger if they go after something big and new, is that some of the ISVs that are already there are already in that space and that for me doesn't do the platform any good. We should use ISVs that probably will be better at it because they're more focused and more dedicated to that particular aspect, rather than ask Microsoft to build a whole new module.
So I guess for anybody who's listening that isn't maybe as technically up to speed, an ISV is a third party that writes some additional app that will work with Business Central to add additional industry specializations or functionality or improve on something that comes out of the box. Okay, so you're saying Microsoft continue to build and improve what's there, fill some of those gaps, but in terms of adding a whole new, we've added this, if that's already in app source or available.
Taking that Microsoft has limited resources, I know their resources, we always quote the billions of pounds they invest into Dynamics and all the rest of it, but that has to go a very long way across all the Dynamics products and all the rest of it. So there is a limited amount that they can achieve. I think they would be first to acknowledge that. And, would I rather they improved some core bits that are there like they've done in the last couple of versions? Yes, I would. I think there's some fundamental kind of re-engineering changes that we could do. The application is still very what I call document centric. It's still back to the old paper paradigm where you take a sales order and you fill all the details in, and the warehouse transactions as well. We tend to find that everything's happening much more line by line. So, line by line approvals, line by line updates, so that I can pick one line that we can make that. We've made that work as an ISV, but I think it would be much better if they could work, because people are using electronic devices end to end anymore. Nobody goes back to, very few Business Central users now go back to the screen with a piece of paper that somebody in the warehouse has written on or somebody in production has written on and so on. People want it real time, end to end, and there's some thinking about how that works because some of it is a little bit clunky.
I think a lot of that's driven certainly from the distribution customers that we have. There's been a massive movement into e-commerce, and a lot more of our customers selling direct or B2B, and I think that's driven more requirements around the warehousing and it changes the way that you physically do things. That if you've got an order for 2 products and you've got a huge warehouse, you don't want to go and walk all the way out, pick those 2 items, come back and pack it, and then go out again. You want to be able to go and pick a whole set of orders, and things like tote picking, where I'm picking it into containers, but I want to go back and I want to pack those products as a separate process. BC doesn't really support that, doing a separate pack process. There are some ISVs out there that can fill some of those gaps, but I think it's quite fundamental to the way BC is structured. And the other side of that is then loading onto a vehicle. So those elements I think will be good to get into BC, because I do think from a distribution side we're seeing a lot more way of working that it is more aligned to
it is wider than
an e-commerce supplier.
If you think about timesheets, the timesheet entry is pretty prehistoric in terms of, and it's really designed, you come with your records of what time you've spent and fill it in. Yeah. It's not like, right, I'm working on this now, stop, or even I've spent 10 minutes on this and I just, allocate against the jobs I've spent time on. So, in the professional services sector, I think the vertical, the people who provide for that vertical have had to do a fairly major engineering exercise to build that capability. So I think that there's aspects of what, as I say, of what they've got that they need to go, and and some of the front to back, again, some of the inquiry, the way that you find information across it. So, when we were preparing for this, you said availability and kind of understanding, okay, something changes on a purchase order, what sales orders, through what production orders does it affect?
Difficult one for the user to answer.
Yeah, lots of different clicks, lots of different lookups, lots of different filters that potentially searches that they've got to do. It's not right, this has changed. What's the kind of consequence of that? Which all comes down in that area to reservation entries, doesn't it? And wow, who wants to go near those? So that's a dangerous place to tread.
Use them, but just don't change it, because it's well, maybe we would like it changed, but it's a complex area of functionality from a development perspective to go changing. Many versions ago we used to get issues with it. It's for quite a few years now. That's been pretty settled, I think. But I think it's settled, and it's just been left kind of to one side. Don't touch it. Yeah, don't touch that. And in terms of usability, it's still a bit clunky to use as well. So I think the concept of it is great, and a lot of customers love the fact of what it does and allows me to say, yes, I'm having that stock. But then the reality hits in, and it gets a bit harder to
but
use.
There's no midway, you've either reservations are on or off, and you've either got to do it pretty completely or you've got to not do it at all. A kind of soft allocation is often a requirement, isn't it? Where can I see where this inventory is potentially going to go, and
I've got two production orders for the same thing, all requiring the same components, but I haven't got enough to make both of them. Which one can I make? You don't know. There's an availability report, and they'll both say you can make it because they look at it independently, which is just useless for most people.
So when you said, though, look, that'd be great if they could do something with that. That must be incredibly difficult for them, or Microsoft, and call them, but Microsoft do a great job on the product generally, but to go and almost rattle something or prod a wasp's nest or whatever you want to do.
It is, but we from a pre-sales perspective, when I'm speaking to prospects, and if we're in a competitive situation, having that ability that a purchase order is going to be late and it tells you which sales orders I need to go, and other products have that.
Yeah, well, it's that kind of alerting. It's turning Business Central into something that's proactive rather than reactive. At the moment, you come to your roll centre and the best you've got is a few queues with hopefully a few numbers on. But even that scenario wouldn't be covered under that. And so people are spending a lot of time going and checking different lists, checking different, and analyse views might help to kind of dissect that information and show a number. But primarily, it would be great if it could come up with, this is the last list of things that need to change and what you need to actually go and organise differently.
If that's what Copilot could deliver, that would be, a game changer.
But that's that. There's no extrapolation. That's fact, isn't it? It's factual that this has changed and this was dependent on it. So you don't need to. That for me, that's not an AI area. The data is there. It's just not in a very digestible form at the moment.
Okay, so there's a couple we've started with there. You've mentioned reservations. You've talked about improvements in the warehouse. Talked about tote picking and so on and so forth. What we third or fourth on the list?
So I think there's a lot of changes. We could sit here and spend the whole podcast on functionality. Order processing, I think, is something that's there's an awful lot. And if they went to AppSource and had a look, but that brings you to where is the dividing line between what Microsoft do and what
the ISVs
do. And they've got to be careful, because for me, Business Central is increasingly I think its success is that it's a great ISV platform. How many customers buy it without something on the top of it? And if you looked at the user counts, we get told that Business Central's user count is continually climbing. The partners I talk to, the bigger numbers, there's a lot of smaller, low user count deals that are sold that are perhaps more generic, but the bigger ones where the significant volume is going through, all of those are add-on, have some add-on on the top of it, and usually 3 or 4 that kind of configure it into something that's very vertical specific.
We see that, don't we, internally as a partner? It's rare we sell. I can't even think where we've ever sold a vanilla version of Business Central out the box. It's going to do everything. There's always a combination of different things, and the ISVs obviously bring a big thing to the party here, because you've got like regional localizations that they're going to know. I mean, Microsoft, this is a global product, right? So there's an element of localization they do, but there's always something unique about certain regions that an ISV would bring. They've got industry knowledge because they've worked with that and they've got a very in-depth knowledge. So it's difficult for Microsoft to have something that fits all, because you're never going to find a customer. The product.
So concentrate on the base, concentrate on that core, and let the industries go after, the ISVs go after the industries. I think that's what's good. What's not so good is, AppSource's ability. If I was a prospect and I was looking at Microsoft and I wanted a distribution vertical or a retail vertical, how would I find LS? I've probably got a much better chance of finding the LS retail website directly via Google than, because AppSource just points you to a number of different apps and doesn't really say which I don't get, and the whole kind of service offers and so on. For me, have we ever had a lead from a service offer?
Not yet, although we've not really put a huge amount of time. I'll let you know in about a few months, because we've made some amendments and changes on that. But you're right. I think you go to AppSource and it's almost like, it's unfair to say it's one big pot and everything's thrown in. You can list out,
segment it, but
segment it a little bit. You go to Business Central.
Can you filter by country yet?
Yes, you can filter by country, because it'll say what countries were available. We have to list that, but that's difficult as well.
I know we list it when we submit the apps, but can you filter it on the front end?
Well, when we've tried to find certain things regionally, it's not been accurate. Even if I say find a partner that's very close to the Midlands, we don't always pop up, which is crazy on some of Microsoft systems. So they're not great on that.
Country, I think it's.
But I haven't played AppSource for a while.
I haven't done it recently, but 4 or 5 months ago, I tried one and it wasn't. Wasn't doing it.
There's not much. They don't seem to publish anything for us as a partner or a marketing guide to say, right, if here's our recommendation on how you list your product. These are the type of things to do to get yourself up in these 2 areas. I don't think you can have like substitute words where if somebody said, a particular phrase, you can change it with maybe what we refer it to. So there's some work to be done there, because we are seeing more and more people find stuff on AppSource. Definitely, end users are driving that discussion now with their partners, but the experience isn't great, and they might. I don't know about the quality of the apps in all the apps in there as well. I think Microsoft might need to do something about the entry point.
Which brings us on to the whole, actually the quality as the apps in there get more and more sophisticated, because we're now almost how many years since V2 apps came out? and VS Code and that kind of whole piece. When was that? Probably, you're getting 7 years.
Must be something like that. I mean, it's 3 years.
Something like that, yeah. So,
pandemic time, it was way before that.
This whole new generation of apps that have been there, the kind of so-called universal code kind of initiative, some of those apps are getting pretty sophisticated, is the word that comes to mind. And that makes testing them a nightmare under the current testing regime. Yes, you can build unit tests, but your whole kind of scenario testing and, it's a lot of dev effort to maintain your test base on there. And then you get scenarios where you have 2 or 3 apps from multiple ISVs. And how do you build a test that goes across that? And well, you can, I guess. But you have to get the test libraries from those ISVs unless you start from absolute scratch. It's hugely expensive and it's hugely complicated. I think that's one area where, again, I would hope Microsoft as the kind of central leader could come to the party with something way better.
I mean, to be fair to them, one thing they have done with outsourcing, it's been on our dream list or our wish list for a long time now, was monetization. And that's starting to appear in trials. I know it's not, the end users won't see it just yet on everything, but that will come. And I think that's going to be good for end users, that they can just make a transaction with Microsoft being the controlling party here, rather than having to basically find the app on AppSource. That redirects you to the ISV's website. Then you have to have a commercial discussion around how that's going to be charged.
And a whole complete plethora of different ways of paying for it. It depends on the partner.
Absolutely. I mean, we had someone the other day contacted us, and we transact in North America in US dollars. This is a Canadian partner. Can't we do it in Canadian dollars? We're not keen on that because it's just another problem for us. If Microsoft with their global platform makes it sense to, for them to do the transaction. Yes, they take a small bit of the margin, but we'd happily give that up.
Very small bit.
Yeah, they've been very generous on that, and I think it'd be good. But so to be fair to them, they do listen to what partners are saying. I know we all want everything immediately, but that's one thing that I think in the next 12 months will be rolled out to all the apps that are there.
I understand it that from the Business Central team, they had to wait for a lot of things to get in place with the rest of Microsoft. So it's been a long, slow road, but it's been a 4-5. Well, ever since AppSource arrived, really, we've been asking for monetization, and it has arrived. And they are talking about other options other than per user coming later. So when they come, I think then it will become the default method, and no doubts on that.
Because at the moment, the monetization means that you can only pay per user that you've got on your license, doesn't it?
On the trial they're running at the moment, if you've got 10 BC users, then you have to match that with your ISV app, and
which isn't always relevant.
It's not always relevant, and but they've always said all the way through, we'll start here, and we've got plans for the other licensing model. So it's
and you mentioned the L word.
Licensing, so I think from our point of view, from the sales and team, the one thing Microsoft has done for many years now is they really simplified the licensing. So I haven't got a huge amount of wish lists or anything which I think would make a fundamental change. I think they've really done a good job on that. That it's very easy for end users to work out that they either need an essentials user or a premium user. Okay, we've got teams, we've got devices, but they're quite easy for big customers.
Devices is not a problem. Teams can be a bit more problematic.
Teams, teams is almost selling a dream that you can get something really, really cheap, and then when you look at it, you've obviously you connect these 3 tables, and it doesn't really do it. So it's a little bit of a frustration, I think, probably for end users. They think, we could probably squeeze in there without understanding what those limitations actually mean in terms of
it's a read only plus.
Yeah, it's not.
And that isn't that going to get squeezed because this new thing where you can see your data in Teams without a license.
Yeah, possibly.
So the Teams license, the ones I hear the most complaints are the people who, like we mentioned it earlier, the ones who do professional services, so they need to input a timesheet or something like that, and a few other bits of functionality. Maybe put on a purchase requisition, which is a feature that we'd like in the core application, please, because it's not just professional services who do requisitions, and seems a more common ask. But that Teams licensing with the custom tables that they're allowed to do, and the 3 standard tables rapidly runs out of speed, and almost very few seem to fit within that.
Yeah.
I know it's a Dynamics 365 kind of model that they've got across multiple applications. So again, it's not the Business Central's Teams.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting because obviously they've now just released the Teams premium license, which is not, you've got to pay a bit more for. And I wonder how long it would be before you need perhaps an M365 certain version if you want that Teams interaction with your Dynamics products. Microsoft haven't done that before, but their licensing.
There's an announcement by Satya, wasn't it, that meant they all kind of had to comply with.
Which makes complete sense, but they've got so many products with so many different variations. It's hard to find a licensing model. I think the one thing I would like when we speak to customers in sales, there's two areas. One, customers like predictability of price, and especially on subscription. That horrible thing, I'm going to buy something and in 12, 24 months the price is going to increase dramatically and I've got no visibility of that.
When I'm dependent on it.
Just when I'm dependent. Well, yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think a lot of customers we speak to would like to be able to lock in for longer, which Microsoft have done something. You typically sign up for a 12-month term. I would say 90% of our customers do. You still can do 30 days, but there's a premium price, which again, customers seem fairly comfortable for. They understand if you only want to sign up, but why can't I sign up for longer and then have a better price is one of the questions we have. Because even if you sign up for a 3-year, there's no price incentive, it just locks your price. But for the 3-year, there is an awful risk put on the partners. So I think that's something which Microsoft are fully aware of, so I won't go through all that again now. But if we could do something where there is some form where it's not the pain and the risk isn't all on the partner, I think that would be sensible.
I mean, particularly for those of customers outside America, because they seem to be aligning the currencies with the US dollar every 6 months.
Every 6 months is the latest thing that they're doing.
Potentially have a price change every 6 months.
Yeah, completely. So that length of time, and we know there are other cloud products out there, ERP cloud products will lock for 5 years, which, when we're in a compete situation, that's one that does come back. Why can't I do that? And the other thing we would love is for those customers that have invested in Dynamics over the years, still on perpetual licenses, they do want to move to cloud, but there's not really a compelling transition model because they paid an awful lot in terms of maintenance and so on and so forth. Microsoft really could do with coming up with an upgrade or transition policy, whatever they want.
The bridge to cloud 2 didn't really float.
Yeah, it didn't.
So what's the options now?
What's the option? So if I could do that, I think bridge to cloud was a great idea where you take your EP and you split it over 12 months. So EP being your maintenance that you pay every year on your perpetual license. And if that was split over 12 months, which is great. And you ended up on a cloud-based model.
So you pay no more than your.
You weren't paying any more than your enhancement. So it got you a cloud.
Was that guaranteed for?
That was guaranteed. Yeah, for you. It was originally the first one was for 12 months, but you could renew for 2 and 3 years afterwards as well. You could renew each annual. Now it's a 3-year deal, and the only problem with that is that it locks the customer in, which isn't a problem. But should the customer ever go bump, Mr. Partner has to pay the remaining 2 or 3 years or however long's left on that term. That's a big.
This whole thing about partners in effect credit insuring customers, it's like we're confused, aren't we? Because are we insurers or are we partners? And and actually going off and should we go off to the insurance market and get third-party insurance and bundle that on the top of it? But that would just make us uncompetitive.
Yeah. And the other thing with Bridge to Cloud, which Microsoft last year announced that the enhancement plan, the maintenance, whatever you want to call it, had increased for the first time that I can remember from 16% of your license value to 17%. From October this year, it's going to go up to 18%. So they are increasing that. And I understand that they're leveraging people to move from perpetual onto cloud. But Bridge to Cloud, every year we have to say, okay, what's your enhancement value? And we'll then divide it by 12. So they're going to have an increase in years 2 and 3 if Microsoft continue to increase the enhancement plan by an extra percentage.
Got to be a little bit careful that customers just don't go, right,
forget my payment enhancement plan, I'll just bank it. And the other problem is whenever you go into that type of thing, if there's not a compelling commercial offering to move to the same, to Business Central in the cloud, they'll go, well, if we're going to re-implement and we've got to relicense everything, I'll go and look at what else is out there. Why wouldn't I? I've invested in this product. So I think that's a risk, and that's a conversation we've had with some of our customers. They have gone back out to market to see what's out there before making a decision. So that's one thing we in the sales team would really like to have, and the customer engagement team, to have that ability to talk to customers, go to cloud. They really want to do it. We show them the benefits of being on the product. They listen to the podcast and then they say, well, how can I get there? It's quite,
and they've put a lot of money into
over the years. Absolutely. So, Microsoft did have a good transition scheme.
Business Central should win because their knowledge base of how it works it has tremendous value. They're predisposed to it. But unless there's a commercial offer that makes sense to them, they won't do it.
Yeah, no, they feel like they've got them over a barrel, and then you're going to sting me for paying for it twice. So, Microsoft do have a transition SKU at the moment, but that expires June. I'm hoping they're about to announce something as they come up to year end. So that would be great. So that's on my wish list.
So, from a kind of platform technical perspective, then just coming away from kind of the commercial licensing bit, there are a number of, I think Microsoft had done an amazing job of kind of making it a cloud-first application. You really can't. There's very few areas now where you can kind of say this doesn't look like there's any compromise on something that was built for the cloud from the start. At least from my perspective, I can't really tell compared to some others. There's one which is affects the kind of development community, which is this whole thing around objects, object names, object suffixes, prefixes, all the rest.
Which goes back many years.
Version, yes, it does. Back to the earliest days of nav and the 50,000 to 100,000 object range and all this rubbish, which they've taken all the kind of, you don't have to buy objects in the cloud now. Another reason for going to cloud, because you get them, whereas you still have to buy them on-prem.
That was a lot of money for some customers, wasn't it?
Those tables added up. And added up the annual EP, annual maintenance as well, which constantly adds to it.
We had customers that wanted to do some of their own development, and it would cost them about £22,000 for the license.
By the whole development license. So that's all gone. But you've still got this thing where preventing clashes between ISVs and between customers. If you develop in the PTE range, potentially you can't move it very far because everybody's 50,100. That's the default position. You've got potentially adding the same names if they don't know the rules to the sales line or the item table or whichever. So there's a concept called namespaces, which is how everything else works. Sooner or later, Microsoft in the last kind of 12 months killed the kind of FLF license file situation for on-prem. Obviously that didn't apply on SaaS. If they could introduce something that meant that we didn't have to worry about which object ranges we were using and all the rest of it, that's just a historical anomaly for me that we should kill.
Sounds like a big one.
I'm not. I mean, I don't know, because it's kind of the platform side that would need to manage it. I think the transition probably might be a bit painful, but we're going to have to do it sooner or later, so we might as well get it over with sooner.
I do feel for Microsoft on that, because there's been times they've made quite radical announcements that we're stopping this or we're moving to that, and you get half the partner channel and go, that's fantastic, they're the proactive ones probably going to cloud on that journey. You've got the few that've got a big legacy base and they're going up arms, uproar about what they're trying to change because it's going to impact them. So
those legacy bases, if you look at those legacy bases now, they're BC 14 and before, are they? I mean, most of the people who, once you get BC 14 for me is the watershed version. So all of that historic stuff is pre that. Anything 15 and above, well then 15, 16, 17, users on that now, they probably haven't. They're up to 18, and even 20, 22, and they're going to look at the analyze for reporting capability. They're going to say, I want that. So if you're on extensions already, you're probably going to do the work. It's not that much and not that massive. And if you do a little bit each release, even if you're on premise, for me, you should be thinking about doing an upgrade each year so that you don't get 5 years behind and then it becomes a massive jump. And things like the web client, works so much better in 22, 20, 21, even 20. The performance of it is so snappy compared to those early versions. You shouldn't be putting up with that. So,
and you're out of support after 18 months anyway. So
yes. So I think
should be moving.
If that for me makes a lot of sense that they're up there. So yes, if they move to, and I think it ought to be relatively simple for them to transition from an object, the object ID model to a namespaces model relatively easy, I'm hoping. So we'll see what comes on that. I think the other major ask that I had on my list is the mobile app. How many customers? Matt, you have a lot of customer interaction. How many customers do you know actually use it?
A few using the tablet app. Very few, unfortunately, using the phone app. It's a great sales kind of tool, because I think there's a lot of potential there. But I think when you come down to especially on the phone app, I think it's there's room for improvement. It hasn't changed an awful lot over the years, has it?
I think for me it had a fundamental flaw that this whole thing of like trying to move your role center, the fact that you can't have a mobile role center that you'll use a phone exactly the same way you use the full client. Most customers on a full client are on a almost 4K is default, and certainly HD is the minimum.
Yeah.
And trying to kind of process that and present it onto a phone screen. There's just too much scrolling, too much extraneous. You want a real cut down, focused role center, I think, for the phone, and you should be able to define for each user. You should be able to define
per device type,
per client type, what role center they go to. Then we could do some cut down pages that really focused on a few things that people want to do on their phone.
It's strange because we were all out at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and I think Liz needed to do something, and she was saying, "Oh, have you got your laptop so I can log on to BC?" And everything else I do in my personal life, you think I've got an app on my phone for that, and I'll book tickets, whatever I need to do it on my. Not once did we think. It was only when we got back, and you said, "Well, why don't you just do it on your phone?" So you're right. I think the mobile client. It hasn't really ingrained itself into our day-to-day usage, probably because we're not out of the office that much. And that was a really good example. You said, why didn't you just use the mobile app? And
I was using the web client in my car the other day.
I did see you. You sent me a picture of you. Yeah.
That was on the full screen on your Tesla. Yes.
While he was parked up. Let's just.
But I think in that case, some of the stuff is moving outside of Business Central. So things like approvals. As we migrate from inbuilt BC approvals to Power Automate based approvals, then the Power Automate client works very well on the phone. So I can do those approvals, but it's a shame that I can't go and look at a customer balance or
you can do
check inventory and so on. Yes,
okay.
But it's not a great. I'm sure Microsoft can see from the telemetry how many people are using it, and the proof is whether people do it twice.
Telemetry is difficult because they might be looking at the telemetry and going, "Well, no one's using this. Why would we continue investing?" Or "What we need to do something to get them using this by making a change." That's
partly what my contention is, Liam. That nobody's using it because it's not a good experience. So they shouldn't give up on it, is what I'm saying. Because I don't think it should be
great ideas in there. The way when you go in the tablet mode, it's assumed that your thumbs are on the kind of left and the right, and therefore most of the buttons and links are on that side. Whereas on the phone, it's then at the bottom. So and it just does that dynamically. Some great technology to deliver that. I think it's just ready for an update, really.
Yeah.
I suppose my frustration is that I think it's 95% there. It's not far off being perfect, but are people gonna at the moment you'd have to have a user and you'd have to have 2 different licenses, and that would screw up your modern workplace connections and all the rest of it if you were logged in something different.
I think a role per client, that's a nice idea.
I think that would solve a lot of it, and you could, provide a very cut down interface and then build it up from there, rather than assuming that you could re-represent the standard.
I suppose as well, in the majority of cases, most people that are using an ERP in a traditional sense are going to be desk-based or there, and there are some ISVs that then have, as we talked about earlier,
well, device license. You have a specific device if you're on a till or a production floor, or
but maybe the
warehouse.
additional functionality for a role where someone needs to interact with BC, maybe from being out on site and you logging a report or logging a timesheet or whatever. There are solutions out there.
Isn't it a 24/7 world these days? And if you get an email in the middle of the evening, don't you just want to go and check?
Yeah, you want to click, and if there's a URL that takes you there, you're right.
To actually go and find your laptop and fire that up is a.
I don't disagree with you, and we need to get, because you were talking about Teams. If it pings on Teams and there was something there with a link to BC, right? You click on that, and then what happens then? And if it's a crap experience, then you probably wouldn't do it again, would you? You wait till the next day or whatever, which isn't great from an efficiency point of view.
So that's, I think that's probably my other major ask.
We haven't asked for much, have we? As usual.
Sounds like a rap.
Yeah. But look, it's always exciting to see what they've got. They're about to announce and what's coming down the line. I think it's the evolution we're seeing. Less big announcements, but lots and lots of little ones, and we were impressed with what came in 23, Wave 1. I know you're out to Directions North America where
Sunday,
we'll be
and then
interested
Asia
to see.
following it.
Yeah, so I'm sure
there'll be
something
two chances to see the announcements. I would expect that they'll announce a few things at North America and then a few things at Asia.
I'm sure they all listen to the podcast and they'll be amending their presentations for next week as we speak. So, but
maybe look, we're all in the same space. We're all working with the same objective. Yeah. So it would be surprising if they haven't heard some of the requests we put out there from other people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, the progression of the product continues to really move at a pace. So they do a good job. But no one's ever satisfied in life, are they? So we always want more. But it's a great product, and it's great to see that it continues to evolve and grow every few months. So it's good.
Yeah, and I saw a tweet yesterday. I was looking through something popped up, and the documentation for actually the Wave 1 release is still getting added to. So there's bits and pieces that they're realising, we did that, we haven't documented. So that list is still going out there. So we don't have to wait all the way till August to see the next list of enhancements before we get a few Easter eggs, I guess, in the current documentation.
Very topical, very topical. Okay, so, well, James, Matt, thanks as always for coming on and sharing your thoughts. Always an interesting topic, so appreciate that. And thank you for watching or listening to the podcast. If you've got anything you like on the wish list, please stick it in the comments. It's always interesting to see what people say.
Yeah,
and that would be good to see what end users or other people that listen to might say. That would be great to be added to the product as well. Okay, well, I think that's it. And we'll see you soon on another edition of Tecman Talks Dynamics.